Lisbon is a city filled with great weather and an abundance of landmarks. You can walk the riverbanks, see the shops and gardens through the cobblestone streets. You'll come across the arts and design, terraced gardens and remodeled palaces, and so much more. There's a simple and unhurried atmosphere, giving it an appeal nowhere else seen. Hello everyone, this is Ronan Blue, and today's topic would be on the 6 best reasons to retire to Lisbon. Just as a disclaimer, the information provided is a general guide and to be used for educational purposes only. Lisbon has a large expat community and would be one of the reasons why it is so popular. The cultural diversity has also been increasing as expats have been seeing Lisbon as their new home. But let's talk about more points coming now. Number 1. Facts about Lisbon. Lisbon is the capital city of Portugal and the oldest city in Western Europe, predating even Rome by centuries. Just about 300 years ago, Lisbon was the city at the center of the world empire until it was struck by disaster. It was actually destroyed by an earthquake followed by a tsunami. But the city was reconstructed and found its way back to the top cities in the world. Portuguese culture in Lisbon is a mix of foreign influences, where explorers have gone to every part of the world. Now there are historical landmarks everywhere, from the architecture of the palaces, castles, and churches. Today, there are artists performing, businessmen in their suits, and children playing in the parks. There's a mix of the old and the new here, with music, museums, and sites that display its diversity. There are also great beaches nearby, the cathedrals and monuments, cobblestone-covered streets, the 7 hills that provide unique views over the city, the river, the food and wine, and the welcoming people. We see festivals being celebrated in Lisbon of their past beliefs in local pagan and Roman gods, as well as Christian saints. Number 2. Food in Lisbon. Lisbon, the capital, has just about every cuisine in the world available, but you could easily get by with eating of the local foods. Here are just a few. Bacalhau. There is a large amount of seafood available in the country, and a popular Portuguese comfort food would be the Castro-style meal that comes in hundreds of different variations. It's made of using salted, dried, and shredded codfish. Its traditionally pan-fried versions of this dish have scrambled eggs, black olives, sliced potatoes, parsley, and duck fat. Grilled sardines. This is a traditionally early summer dish, where it is served grilled and eaten on thick slices of sourdough bread with roasted bell peppers. They are expected to show up during festivals, where you'll see fish grilling stands along the street accompanied by lots and lots of wine. It's actually a cultural experience having sardines while in Lisbon. The fresh sardines are caked in rock salt and grilled until cooked thoroughly. They are served with a Portuguese roll, boiled potatoes, and peppers. Bifana. This is the unofficial street food of Lisbon. It's a simple yet utterly delicious meal that is best enjoyed as a grab-and-go dish while on the move. It's actually a pork sandwich and is always thinly sliced and slow-cooked in a combination of white wine, garlic, and spices. The pork is placed onto the bread right out of the cauldron. Number 3. Why live in Lisbon? Besides being the capital and having the country's best places, it's one of the preferred cities for expats. It's expected to have every facility available. With its rich history, white bleached limestone buildings, and narrow alleyways, Portugal's capital is a popular destination for travelers and expats alike. There are restaurants to medical centers and has been labeled as one of the best cities for tourists to wander around. It has a great transport network, a pretty fair cost of living, amazing food, tons of historic monuments to visit, and of course wonderful weather all year round. If you're looking for a job, it's advisable that you have at least another language besides your native. The languages of English and Spanish seems to be the most popular, and also German is also very much required in specific areas. Call centers and customer services seems to be a popular job for foreigners. Teaching English and tourism-related opportunities are there as well. But there are jobs in restaurants, bars, and cafes, as these places are always looking for extra help, especially during higher seasons. As for safety, as in any other city, strolling around at night isn't advisable. There's also many ways to travel within the city as well. By train, which is the cheapest, to taxis, Uber, and Cabify. There are also electric scooters or bikes available for rent as well, but they're not as cheap. There are taxes as well, lower when compared to the rest of Europe. Foods in the supermarkets as well as everyday needs are cheaper as well. There are also a lot of places to rent or buy in Lisbon, depending on your budget. The best neighborhoods are close to metro and train stations, but of course the more central you get, the more you will pay. So the farther you get from the central, the cheaper it will get. But don't forget how much transportation will cost monthly. It may turn out to be the same cost, depending on what kind of transportation you take. But everyone could agree that there is a relaxed vibe here, something you really don't get in many capital cities around the world. People here are friendly and the life tends to be relaxed a lot of the time. The expat community in Lisbon is also growing fast. A lot of people that live here are digital nomads, and most stay here for a couple months at a time. Many even fall in love with it and end up spending a few years here. The older expats tend to live closer to the coast, particularly in areas like Cascais. The cost of living can be even more expensive there. There are also several groups on Facebook for expats in Lisbon or expats in Portugal. They are a great place to ask specific questions and find information about moving to Lisbon or moving to Portugal in general. Number 4. Entertainment in Lisbon. There are many reasons why Lisbon is one of Europe's most popular places to be. It's pleasing to anyone's eye, and the capital also has tons of things to do, eat, and see. It's full of history. The hilly cobbled streets of Lisbon tells its stories. There has been development, but it still keeps its beauty. The architecture, its nightlife, world-famous cuisine, and sublime beaches, this city has it all. The tiny streets and alleyways are lined with restaurants decorated in traditional Portuguese style. Restaurant owners stand in doorways to try and call people in. If you walk inside, you'll likely find an authentic meal and traditional fado music. Visiting Lisbon, you'll hear this everywhere. You can also get out of the city and onto the beach in 30 minutes, and on the way, you'll see views of the river, and you could hop off at different classic seaside towns. It's also full of creativity and home to an ever-growing artistic community. With renowned public institutions, non-profit spaces, plenty of street art, and more, the city has something for everyone. You can even sit in a cafe and drink coffee and eat cakes all day if you wanted. Portugal has a great coffee culture where people can spend hours sitting in a cafe. But between the historical landmarks, the classical majestic townscape, the rich food culture, it's possible to spend months in Lisbon and discover something new every day. There are also many free things to do in Lisbon as well. You can visit some pretty old marketplaces where you can just walk around to view and take a few photos, or to pick up a few things like a vintage evening gown or hand-painted tiles. There are also some amphitheaters as well that host regular concerts for free. You can also visit the many gardens as well, and you'll see some of the most beautiful viewpoints as well, since it's spread out over 7 hills and without the crowds. You can also walk around looking for street art as well, all day if you wanted to. There's plenty of colorful and intriguing street art all around Lisbon. It's a perfect city to wandering, strolling, and exploring. Number 5. Cost of living in Lisbon. Living in Lisbon is affordable in comparison to other European countries. However, in Lisbon, especially in the city center, prices across the board have risen a lot in the last 5 years. It seems like Lisbon's biggest problem in the past few years has been its tourism boom. While it's been fantastic for the city in many ways, it's also caused a lot of problems. Basically, Lisbon isn't big enough to cope with the sheer number of tourists that are visiting. Sites like Airbnb began renting short-term on Airbnb, and long-term stays are rare and has become more expensive as well. This has created a shortage of housing in the city, and more of its residents have had to move out of the city center. A meal at an inexpensive restaurant is $9.47, between $7 and $15 USD. A meal for 2 people at a mid-range restaurant for a 3-course meal would be $39, between $27 and $55 USD. Basic utilities for an apartment would be $119 between $78 and $218 USD per month. The internet would be $37 between $31 and $55 USD per month. A fitness club would be $37 between $26 and $55 USD per month. A cinema would be about $8 between $7 and $9 USD. An apartment, one bedroom in city center would be $1,027 between $780 and $1,337 USD per month. An apartment, one bedroom outside the city center would be $721 between $557 and $891 USD per month. An apartment, three bedrooms in city center would be $1,931 between $1,560 and $2,786 USD per month. An apartment, three bedrooms outside the city center would be $1,288 between $1,003 and $1,783 USD per month. Rent is the heaviest expense in the cost of living in Lisbon. The capital costs twice as much as the rest of the country. The average size of apartments in Portugal, as in the rest of Europe, is also considerably smaller than many North Americans are used to. But if you do want to buy a house in Lisbon, you have to be prepared for the high prices, especially if you choose the most expensive areas. Living in Lisbon is getting more and more expensive. Lisbon is witnessing a rise in the price of rents, services, and consumer goods. Residents, especially in the areas of greater economic interest, are suffering from pressure and evictions from building owners. The important thing is to always have a realistic and informed view before making any decisions. Living in Lisbon may be the best alternative for one person, but for another it may no longer be. But overall, Portugal still offers the lowest cost of living in Western Europe. A couple can live comfortably in Portugal's interior or in smaller cities from about $1,700 a month. A couple's budget in Lisbon starts at about $2,100 or $2,200 USD a month, though you can, of course, spend more. Singles, case by case, should plan on a budget of about 2/3 that of a couple. Number 6. Pros and cons for living in Lisbon. Let's now talk about the pros and cons for living in Lisbon, starting with the pros. The food scene. Local Portuguese food in Lisbon is delicious, and there are amazing international restaurants here too. Italian, Austrian, Mexican, Peruvian, Japanese, and Argentinian food. Although Lisbon isn't known for its food destination, it has some really great foods. English is widely spoken. English is spoken widely in Lisbon, making it easy to adjust. Many landlords speak English, and menus are in English as well. Even personal trainers at gyms speak English. Even stopping people on the streets speak English as well. Making friends with the locals is easier as well, and they appreciate the opportunity to practice their English while teaching some Portuguese. Younger Portuguese people learn English at school, and they are always keen to practice with expats. Affordable. Portugal would be one of the cheapest countries in Western Europe, but Lisbon has been growing in popularity over recent years and becoming more expensive. Accommodation in particular in Lisbon is pricey, but everything else is affordable. Food, wine, bread, and normal shopping commodities are generally very reasonably priced. It's easy to obtain British foods if expats really need them. The weather. The weather here is mild and pleasant, which makes people spend more time outdoors every day, regardless of the season. It has a typical Mediterranean climate with high temperatures and plenty of sunshine. The city enjoys more than 300 sunny or partially sunny days a year, which makes it ideal for sunbathing on a beach or relaxing along the swimming pool, even in some warmer winter days. Summers are long and very warm here. The Atlantic Ocean does bring pleasant coolness and keeps the summer heat bearable. The weather is great. Generally, March to October is warm, with July and August being really hot. Temperatures could climb to 104 degrees Fahrenheit or 40 degrees Celsius. The beaches. Most European capitals are located far from the coast, but Lisbon's is one of the few exceptions. For those who like beaches, they stretch along the entire western and southern areas of the country, and are white and clean. And only in July and August are the most popular beaches ever crowded. Attractions. Near the city center and relatively close to it, there are numerous attractions. Besides its beautiful beaches, there are a large number of great restaurants and places to have a cold drink after a long day at the beach. These places could be your inspiration if you're an artist, but this is also a great way to insert some style and sophistication in your everyday life. The shorelines also attract surfing, swimming, and sunbathing. Lisbon is also sometimes said to be a smaller version of London or Paris. There are also many museums to visit as well. The rich history of the city is well preserved, so today for the residents and the guests of the city, it's easy to experience its historical atmosphere. There are forest parks as well. Pleasant shades of huge trees attract lovers of nature from all parts of the city. But besides the plants, the park is a place where you can find some very rare animals as well as various species of exotic birds. It's also very safe. The risk of becoming a victim of a crime exists everywhere, but it is generally much lower in Europe than in other parts of the world. It's generally quite safe in Lisbon, as long as you have your wits with you in not walking in dark alleyways at night. It's also a walkable city. Although the metro and Uber is available, it is a very walkable city. Everything you could possibly need to get is probably within a 20-minute walk. So seeing friends, sightseeing, and trying out new restaurants and bars is super easy. Friendly. The people of Portugal are incredibly friendly and helpful. Neighbors will often bring homegrown tomatoes, share their wine, and talk to expats quite happily. Now let's talk about the cons of Lisbon. Not everyone is perfect. No matter where you live in the world, there are things you love and there will always be things you wish were different. Lisbon is no different. Bureaucracy. Whether it's starting a business or applying for planning permission, you'll need to deal with the bureaucracy. There's a lot of it in Portugal. Bureaucracy is thick and not fast. Information from public offices can also be inconsistent. The hardest part is that you never know how to navigate it. If it was simply a case of filling out paperwork and speaking to the right people, but you knew which paperwork to fill out and which people to speak to, it would be just fine. Unfortunately, there's a good chance you'll be going into a lot of situations blind. But thankfully, there are a lot of Facebook groups and forums where you can ask people questions and hopefully speak to other people who've had a similar situation. Integration. People have their own circles, and as an outsider, it can be very difficult to get into those circles, especially if you don't speak Portuguese. This isn't because the Portuguese are unwelcoming. In fact, they're incredibly welcoming of both tourists and expats, and normally very friendly when you speak to them. As to breaking into their circle, don't expect that to be too easy. Expensive utilities and other things. Although food and wine is cheap in Portugal, not everything else is. Some things are comparatively quite expensive. Petrol in Portugal is one of the most expensive countries for fuel, which leads to a lot of people who live near the Spanish border to drive across to fill up. Other things that are expensive include cars, both new and second-handed, electronics, furniture and appliances, toll roads, books, branded international foods, cosmetics, and toiletries. Cold winters. Although most people associate Portugal with beaches and sunshine, a lot of northern Portugal can be very damp and wet in the winter. Most people who move to Portugal usually live in Lisbon or south of Lisbon though, which often has mild winters. But even though it can be warm outside, that doesn't mean that it's warm inside. Portuguese houses, especially the older Portuguese houses, can be extremely cold in the winter. Most have no central heating or good quality installation, and often it's much warmer outside than it is inside. Heating the property can also be expensive as electricity prices are high. A lot of rural properties have fireplaces or people pay for gas central heating. Another con would be learning Portuguese. Learning a new language may be a fact of life, but to others it's a big downside. It isn't so much that people don't want to learn Portuguese, but rather that it's a big stumbling block that prevents you from integrating into Portugal. One of the downsides of living in another country and not being fluent in the language is that you miss out on a lot of cultural events like the theater, talks, and storytelling events. Low employment. A lot of people who move to Portugal bring their own money in the sense that they either come here as retirees with a pension, as freelancers or remote workers with clients outside of Portugal, or they start their own business here. While there are jobs in Portugal, salaries are low, especially when compared to what most non-Portuguese people are used to. To get ahead in a lot of industries in Portugal, it's all about who you know. This is true in a lot of other countries, of course, but it's especially true in Portugal. Rising cost of living. The cost of living in Portugal is on the rise, particularly when it comes to property prices. This is obviously more of a downside for the Portuguese living in Portugal, who typically have less buying power on average, but it's still a downside for expats as well. And over tourism. In the past few years, tourism has boomed in Portugal. Lisbon in particular has become one of the hottest destinations to visit, and it has attracted millions of tourists from all over the world. Lisbon at times are much too small to handle the sheer volume of tourists that are visiting. The streets are narrow and the cities themselves are quite compact and small. And it's also led to other problems in the local housing markets, as mentioned earlier, and put a strain on public transport and other services. But Lisbon is a safe and welcoming city to everyone who chooses it. Well, tell me what you think of living in Lisbon in the comment section below. If you like this vlog, please don't forget to give me a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and hit that notification bell for more of my coming content here. Thank you for watching my vlog. Be free, gain wealth, and travel far.